Samantha had just moved into the old Victorian house on the edge of town. It was charming and a little creaky, with its high ceilings and ornate woodwork. The real estate agent had insisted it was a fixer-upper, but Samantha saw potential. She loved the way the house seemed to have its own personality, even if it was a bit of a fixer-upper. The first night was uneventful, just the usual settling sounds of a house. But by the second night, she began to hear faint whispers coming from the walls. At first, she thought it was just the house adjusting, but as the nights went on, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Samantha tried to ignore them, attributing the sounds to old pipes or perhaps the wind, but the whispers seemed to follow her around the house. They grew clearer, forming fragmented words that she couldn't quite make out. Her nights became restless, filled with uneasy dreams of shadowy figures and dark, cramped spaces. One particularly unsettling evening, as she lay in bed, the whispers grew louder and more distinct. She could almost understand them now. They spoke of regret and sorrow, of something being buried deep within the walls. The whispers seemed to come from every direction, converging in her room. Unable to sleep, Samantha decided to investigate. She traced the whispers to a particular section of the wall in the basement, where the sounds seemed to be coming from. With a crowbar and a hammer, she pried open the paneling, revealing a narrow, dark space behind the wall. The darkness seemed to swallow the light from her flashlight, but she pushed forward. The whispers grew louder and more frantic as she squeezed into the space. It was cold and damp, and the air felt heavy. She moved through the cramped tunnel until she reached a small hidden room. In the dim light, Samantha saw something that made her blood run cold. The room was lined with old, dusty furniture, and in the center, there was a wooden chest. It was intricately carved with symbols she didn't recognize. The whispers now seemed to be coming from the chest itself, pleading and wailing. Her hands trembled as she opened the chest. Inside, she found a collection of old journals and a single weathered photograph. The photograph was of a family, an older couple and 2 children. Their faces were somber, their eyes hollow. Behind them, she could barely make out the edge of what looked like her house. The journals were filled with frantic, desperate writings about a curse, about a pact made with something malevolent that demanded souls in exchange for their secrets. The last entry was a chilling confession, written in a scrawled, panicked hand. It spoke of trapping the spirit inside the house, to prevent it from escaping and claiming more lives. As Samantha read the last words, a cold breeze blew through the room, extinguishing her flashlight. The whispers turned into a deafening roar, and the shadows around her began to writhe and twist. The walls seemed to close in, and she felt an icy grip on her arm. With a final terrified scream, Samantha tried to escape the room. But the house had its claws in her now. The whispers grew louder, consuming her thoughts. She stumbled through the narrow tunnel, her heartbeat pounding in her ears, until she finally emerged into the basement. But as she turned to flee, she saw the true horror. The walls of the basement were covered with hundreds of scratch marks, deep and bloody. The whispers had stopped, replaced by a silence that was more terrifying than any sound. Samantha knew she couldn't stay. She packed a few belongings in a frenzy and fled into the night, leaving the house behind. No one ever saw her again. The house, however, remained. And as the years passed, new tenants would move in, only to hear the whispers in the walls, growing louder and more desperate with each passing day. The old Victorian house had claimed another soul, its secrets hidden deep within its darkened heart.